So we're a few episodes into Season 7 of The Flash now, and Team Flash is already expanding on the Arrowverse in some pretty big ways through their exploration of the other three fundamental forces of the universe.
Whoa, what?
Yeah, it turns out the Speed Force and the Negative Speed Force aren't the only major forces in town anymore, thanks to Team Flash messing around with the artificial Speed Force machine at the end of the third episode, titled Mother. While the team did manage to get Barry's powers back using the artificial Speed Force machine, along with the residual energy inside of Iris,
how convenient!
They also somehow accidentally unleashed three other universal forces in the process. The Strength Force, which grants users superhuman strength and durability, the Sage Force, which gives its users the ability to manipulate the minds of others, including their emotions, and the Still Force, which allows users to manipulate the flow of time. Now that's definitely a lot to process, especially for this crew, but what if I told you that it's possible, based on the comics this arc is based on, plus some stuff we've seen in the show up till this point, that we might also be seeing one more force join the party before the end of the story arc, that being the Forever Force. Now what exactly is the Forever Force? Well, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, as far as I've been able to tell, DC hasn't really elaborated a whole lot on what exactly the Forever Force is, but based on Hunter Zolomon's claim that he had a taste of its power after the cosmic treadmill explosion that granted him his original powers, plus this scene with Barry and Hunter in the Forever Force from The Flash issue 80, then I think this means full wielders of the Forever Force basically have the ability to not only manipulate all of time, but also all of space, potentially on a multiversal scale. Obviously that sounds amazing, and I don't know about you guys, but I'd definitely love to see something like that. Even if the Still Force already kind of covers a decent chunk of this one's power set, but whatever. Having said that though, I know somebody's going to be watching this video like, but comics, there's literally no proof that there's an extra force floating around out there. Why would the writers try to shoehorn in some random, undefined force into the story anyway? It wouldn't make any sense. Well, first, let's go back to the end of the season's third episode and take a look at Team Flash unleashing the other forces again. Remember, we actually see 5 different lightning colors at the end of the attempt at reviving the Speed Force. Red, green, blue, orange, and yellow. Now 3 of them, we already know which ones they correspond to. If you've read the comics or seen this image, then you probably already know that red represents the Strength Force, blue represents the Sage Force, and green represents the Still Force. We've already seen the Still Force with a green energy effect. I'll actually be doing a theory video on this force at some point. So I think it's pretty safe to say that the TV writers are more or less going with what all the comic writers had going on with this arc. That just leaves us with these 2, orange and yellow. I remember seeing a few videos when this episode first came out talking about how the yellow lightning represents the Speed Force and the orange lightning doesn't actually mean anything after the 4 colors split out of it, but honestly I'm not entirely sure about that. I mean, as I've said in a bunch of other videos in the past, Barry's Speed Force lightning has always had a more orangey tinge to it.
Except for this guy.
Which makes sense, since pretty much every time we've seen direct Speed Force energy, like speedsters going into the Speed Force, being affected by something from the Speed Force, things like that, the results are usually shown in an orange color. I know yellow's also tied to the Speed Force, like with Wally's lightning for example, but when the majority of the time we've seen Speed Force energy it's been orange, I think it's a pretty clear sign that the Speed Force is meant to be represented by the color orange at this point. Which just leaves us with whatever the color yellow is supposed to represent. And since there's only one other Flash-related force in this story that hasn't been brought up in the show yet, I think it's a safe assumption that it's a clear sign of the Forever Force. Now, as of the time this video is being made, we really don't know all that much about the forces in the show, like where they came from, why they attacked the Speed Force, what the end goal is for any of this, things like that. We do know in the comics though that the reason we never saw these other forces until somewhat recently was because an early Speed Force user blocked their access to the main DC universe by setting up a special force barrier in an effort to preserve the Speed Force. Turns out the other forces all actually hurt each other and went to war with each other a long time ago, and in order to ensure that one of them can survive, the other ones either have to be separated from the DC universe by the force barrier or just outright destroyed. Of course, this barrier worked perfectly fine until it was eventually broken by Barry and Wally thanks to some manipulation by Hunter Zolomon during the Flash War story arc as part of a new master plan. Gather up all the other forces, unlock and control the Forever Force, kill the physical embodiment of death, overall making him the greatest Flash in the multiverse. Now, even though we know some aspects of the original story are making their way over to the TV version, like how the Speed Force was apparently injured by 2 of the other forces, and how the Force users are supposed to meet up at some point this season, meaning we might see them battle it out to preserve their own powers, we don't know about other parts yet for sure, like which Flash villain might be involved in any of the behind-the-scenes stuff yet. Reverse Flash is always a possibility, especially since he was turned into a red lightning storm back in Season 6, and was originally planned to be part of a big tease leading into this season, But I think it's also possible that Godspeed might be involved too, especially considering how we really haven't gotten any resolution to anything he was doing last season, like those weird Godspeed duplicates, or who all he was apparently working with.
You're pathetic. You don't deserve the speed you were given. We do.
I mean, who knows? Maybe these two are working together, trying to use the forces to rewrite their own failures and stomp out the Flash's legacy in the process. Now, all that having been said, obviously there's no guarantee that the writers are going to want to bring in the Forever Force into the events of the show, right? I mean, like I said earlier, a big part of the Forever Force, even what all we saw when it was introduced in the comics, was that it allows someone to manipulate all of time. Not just their own, like Zoom used to do to make himself a pseudo-speedster, and the show's version of the Still Force pretty much has that one covered, as we saw in this season's 6th episode, the one with the 90s. So why would they even bother? Well, they might not. Unless this could be the way Earth Prime rediscovers the multiverse. Remember, the multiverse was remade after the events of the Crisis crossover, but up till now, nobody's been able to access it or is even aware it exists anymore, thanks to all the changes to the multiversal physics.
Well, what about those clicky things you guys use?
The extrapolators don't work. Now that the multiverse is gone, the physics behind breaching has changed entirely.
Yes, except you can't return to your Earth because the multiverse is dead. So,
The multiverse, it's dead?
unless there's a vibrational frequency henceforth unknown to man, then our universe is the only one that's left.
Assuming the writers really wanted to focus on the second part of the Forever Force's abilities and allow users to manipulate space too, then we could see Team Flash rediscover the multiverse and see that play into events in the back half of Season 7. Maybe even influencing some of Season 8 too. I mean, The Flash was the show that broke open the multiverse for the rest of the Arrowverse, so it would make sense that the show's writers would want to reestablish it moving forward, especially since, apparently, this version of Jay Garrick is the one that'll be making an appearance in the upcoming second season of Stargirl. Either way, I guess we'll see what happens as Team Flash makes their way through this Force War in the next few episodes moving forward. But anyways guys, that's my take on whether or not we might be seeing a fifth force being thrown into the mix in this season of The Flash. If you guys agreed with anything I said in this video, or if you have your own thoughts you want to throw out there, then go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, I will see you all next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, then go ahead and click that like button, and if you're new, maybe consider clicking that subscribe button too. I've also got links to my Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and Patreon in the description. You should probably check those out too. And if you want to see more of my content, then you can click the link to my last video. It's right there in the middle of your screen. Alright, and I will see you all next time.